All right, y'all, in this video, we're going over fantasy points per game at the tight end position. Now, we don't want to just go into our drafts type of looking just at names, you know, the Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce's. We want to be able to kind of dive a little deeper than that. We want to find out who was able to produce for you on a week in and week out type of basis. So we're going to go back, look at last year's rankings, see who's really able to produce those numbers for you. Like I said, we want week in and week out type of numbers. We want consistency at the tight end position. So without further ado, let's get looking at fantasy points per game at the tight end position. All right, starting here at number 12, we're going to go ahead and talk about Dalton Schultz at 7.6 points per game. He really wasn't the focal point of the offense for the Dallas Cowboys, but now he has moved over to the Houston Texans, and they really don't have much there. Dalton Schultz should be the main contributor for this offense, and whatever rookie quarterback ends up coming to town should be able to use Dalton Schultz as a safety blanket. Now at 7.6 points, it's nothing to really shake a stick at. It's kind of gross down here at the bottom in tier 3. But that's just what we've come accustomed to what the tight end position is. You're not getting that elite production unless you're grabbing your Travis Kelce. So other than that, we're gonna have to skim through the doo-doo and see exactly who we can find to be a sort of a consistent producer. But at 7.6 points per game, I think Dalton Schultz will definitely improve on that just based on the amount of volume that he will have with the Houston Texans. So Dalton Schultz could be a nice sleeper pick for you in 2023. Let's move over to the number 11 guy, and we got somebody that I really like, and that's gonna be Pat Freiermuth. Now, Freiermuth started building a rapport with Kenny Pickett. He was going back and forth from Pickett to Trubisky, but now we know it's going to be Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Pat Freiermuth has the talent. He had 7.8 points, fantasy points per game that he averaged last season, and I absolutely think he's going to improve on that. I think Pat Freiermuth is somebody you can grab way later in the draft, and he can probably produce closer to the 9 to 10 point average for you in 2023, as long as he can continue to build that rapport with Kenny Pickett. Now we're moving on to number 10. We're going to go ahead and talk about Darren Waller. Darren Waller kind of had a little bit of an injury plague type of season for the Raiders. The Raiders ended up wanting to move on from Darren Waller, even though he is one of the premier tight ends in the league. He's now for the New York Giants, who goes to a team who has nobody to throw the football to. So Darren Waller should be hitting early and often from Daniel Jones, and I definitely see this 7.9 probably getting into the 10s, possibly even 11s in 2023. I can't wait to come out with my rankings, but I think Darren Waller being down here at number 10 for average fantasy points per game is way too low for him for his talent level, but that is just where he was for 2022. We'll have to wait and see what happens with him in this Giants offense in 2023. Moving on to number 9, another guy that I really like is going to be David Njoku at 8.1 points per game. And now that he's playing with Deshaun Watson, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a rapport there. I think David Njoku's still young enough to be able to produce at a higher level than what he's been producing. Some people at one point thought he was going to be a bust, and they were like, oh, he's going to be breakout, and then he's back to a bust. I think he's a good breakout candidate for 2023, especially if Deshaun Watson really kind of looks David Njoku's way and see if they can build some type of consistency. I think he's definitely capable of improving on that 8.1 fantasy points per game that he averaged in 2022. Moving on here to number 8, we're going to talk about Evan Ingram, and he kind of revived his career down there in Jacksonville when he was up there with the Giants. They really wasn't utilizing him correctly, and 8.3 points per game puts him as a top 8 tight end. I know most weeks you were excited to have Evan Ingram. There was a couple weeks he even won you a game that 33 points down in week 14. He definitely was able to win you a week. So Evan Ingram has the talent, he has the speed, he has the hands. They did franchise tag him, so they'll see if they can sign him to a long-term deal. But playing with Trevor Lawrence, I think is only really good for this guy. I think at 8.3 points per game, you could probably even see an increase in that. Evan Ingram has the talent to be a good player for your team. So let's go over to the number 7th guy, and I really don't care for him to being on your fantasy team because many games you're probably going to have almost 0 points with this guy, and that's going to be Taysom Hill, averaging 8.8 points per game. He's kind of a gadget player. You know, there's a couple times he has scored, you know, once 34.1 points in a game, and it kind of boosted his average up a little bit. But you know, there's plenty of games. There's 1.4 points, 1.1 points, 0.1 points, 2.5 points, 3 points. That's not what you want from your tight end position. Yes, he does rank 7th in fantasy points per game, but that's kind of how he got inflated elevated just by a couple games, having real good. I would say stay away from Taysom Hill in 2023. Let's move it along to number 6. We're going to talk about Zach Ertz at 9.2 points. Now, he is a tight end worth kind of looking at here. I mean, Trey McBride could be a good play after this season, but Zach Ertz, they like targeting this guy with the football, and it shows by him only having 5 tight ends better than him. If he didn't get hurt last season, he would have been a top 5 tight end. I called that at the beginning of the season. I thought he was a sleeper top 5 tight end, and he would have definitely been able to achieve that just based on how he got started. But he ended up getting injured, ended up didn't play in week 11 and that really hurt his overall value, but he could have definitely improved on that 9.2 points. He is a little bit older, but he still has the talent to get the things done. So, you know, like I said earlier, tight end is just not very fruitful type of position. So getting somebody like Zach Ertz towards the end of your draft, you could do a lot worse than Zach Ertz. So let's go ahead and go to the top 5 here. At number 5, we're still doing the last person here in tier 3, and that's going to be Dallas Goedert at 9.5 points per game. See, when you're looking at tight ends, you want them to be at least 10 points per game to kind of give you some type of advantage in your lineup. But Dallas Goedert did have some good games last season for the Philadelphia Eagles. The problem is that he was just hurt. He missed 5 games last season, and there's multiple games he was just under that 10-point mark, which gave him the 9.5 average. I want to see Dallas Goedert do more, be more involved in the offense, and that starts with just staying healthy. So if he can do that, I think him and Jalen Hurts could produce some good plays. He was kind of touchdown dependent, if you ask me. If he got a touchdown that week, then boom, you had a good week. If he didn't, you ended up, you know, regretting it. So, but other than that, let's go ahead and move over to tier 2. Move at the number 4 position. We're going to talk about TJ Hockenson at 10.1. TJ Hockenson moved over from the Lions over to the Vikings, and man, did that do well for his career. It didn't start that good for TJ Hockenson, scoring under 10 points for what, multiple times until about week 9. He started picking up just a little bit, but you know, one week he scored the 30 points, which we really liked. That was in week 16, which really helped boosted up his numbers. He had 35.9 points also in week 4, so the guy can get it done. But now that he's with the Vikings, he's one of the main receiving threats. And then he's going to be one of the main guys, probably number 2 behind Justin Jefferson in 2023. So I do see him still sitting at 10.1 or maybe even higher next season. If you won't be disappointed if you get him on your roster. Coming in at number 3, we're going to talk about Mark Andrews at 10.3 fantasy points per game. Mark Andrews really is going to be hinging on whether or not Lamar Jackson is going to be coming back to town, because Lamar Jackson loves honing in on his tight end friend Andrews. So depending on it, we see when he wasn't in the game, Mark Andrews only scored over 10 points once. So the last time he scored in the double digits was week 6. And then other than week 6, there was week 17. He had 14.5. Everything else was probably below 7.4 was his highest other than that. So Mark Andrews, he's really dependent on that quarterback play. When they don't have good quarterback play, you're going to be really frustrated with Mark Andrews. But you got just kind of show you know, what type of games. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 games out of 5 between weeks 2 and 6, he was in a 20 point mark. So that's why he's at the 10.3 right now. He could have been much higher if Lamar Jackson would have stayed healthy. But if Jackson can secure a new deal, Mark Andrews should be definitely a top 2 tight end in 2023. Moving over here to number 2, which is the last player on the tier 2 on the tight end list, and that's going to be George Kittle at 11.4. Kittle is one of those boom or bust type of tight ends where he can win you a week with 20 plus points in a game, and he can probably lose you a week with 3 points in a game. So I think with Brock Purdy being at the quarterback position, as long as he's healthy, I think that's really good for George Kittle. Purdy's accuracy is really solid, but even though he was Mr. Irrelevant last season for the draft, he produced, and he's shown that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And if he has that, a safety blanket right there, George Kittle, he's gonna definitely perform or even outperform that 11.4 points he had in 2022. And now, without further ado, tier 1, he is definitely in his own tier. Everybody knows who it is, and that's Travis Kelce at 15.4 points per game. I mean, just looking at this, you can see the advantage you have when you draft Travis Kelce. The problem is you got to spend a late first, early second round in a redraft format for Travis Kelce, and a lot of people just don't want to pay that type of premium. But I mean, 15.4 and the second guy is 11.4. I mean, that's 4 points per game more, and that can definitely win you multiple weeks. So let's just gonna go over all these guys all told. We have Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, and TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. We have Taysom Hill, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Darren Waller, Pat Freiermuth, and Dalton Schultz. As always, thank you for watching the video as we continue to pump out more and more content to help you just dominate your leagues, making sure we're delivering on the best content we possibly can to help prepare you, to help get you ready in this off season, so that way you can go into the drafts knowing who you're going to be taking week in and week out, getting you ready to dominate. Doesn't matter how many leagues you're in, this channel is going to be for you. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, would really help me out. Hit the like button and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about these rankings and these fantasy points per game, what we're going over. But I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.